Drop it on the random. Coming up on this episode of Hip Hop Now Podcast, the Eminem Effect.
But let's get right to the business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone.
Classic album.
Come to Hip Hop Podcast.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast Extra, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. And when we throw the extra in there for those who are new to this podcast, I appreciate you for coming through. Hopefully you stick around. Well, really, you can stick around. Just ask the people who've been here. But the extra is all about focusing in on one topic at hand and somewhat dissecting that topic. First and foremost, I want to shout out the homie Tony from IntoTheDome.com. Brother, hold your head out there. He lives in North Carolina, so y'all know Hurricane Florence is crazy down there. If you're like, yo, who's that though? I do another podcast with him called That Time in Hip Hop. The most recent episode, which is available in an audio version as well as a video version on YouTube, is about the time in hip hop when Tim Dog dropped the record F. Compton. The podcast is designed to talk about the facts, the rumors, the hearsay, and just pretty much the nostalgia that surrounds these moments in hip hop. Because believe it or not, that was truly a moment in hip hop. If you don't know, the F. Compton record came out in 1991 and basically completely focused on NWA as the rivals, which it was like unheard of at the time for somebody to diss them, and not just diss them, but in that way. Like basically it was hit 'em up before Hit 'em Up. It was East versus West before the so-called East versus West. So check that out. If you subscribe to this podcast, the audio version of that particular podcast is already on the stream. But if you want to watch the video itself and watch me and him chop it up about the album, I also pull out the original cassette tape that I still have in the garage. You can just look for That Time in Hip Hop on YouTube. Just search for it. You'll find it. And not only will you find that episode, but you'll find a couple of more. So do that as soon as possible, because the more, likes and plays and shares and comments we get, the more that tells us that we should continue. So show your love. Now, let's get right into the business at hand. First and foremost, let me just say a disclaimer for myself, right? I'm drinking Douce right now. Y'all know how that go. Douce with lime. I know. But when I don't want to mix it with soda or anything really sweet. You know what I'm saying? The lime kind of neutralizes the taste because, not the taste, but the harshness. Let's stop talking about the alcohol. The point of the matter is, the disclaimer about me is that I'm an Eminem fan. I'm not ashamed to say that. No one should be ashamed to say that, to be honest. But I'm an Eminem fan, right? I've been an Eminem fan since his first album came out. Now, I wasn't a day one like, yo, I can't wait for it to drop. Let me go get it. I remember seeing Eminem in The Source way before he was with Dr. Dre. But didn't really pay that no mind. Not nothing crazy, right? Then I remember seeing the record he had with Dr. Dre on his first album, Guilty Conscience. Seeing the video and thinking like, oh, this is funny. This is different. I'm not used to seeing Dr. Dre in this setting. It's kind of appealing in that way, right? So I used to do this thing where when I was attending Morgan State University, anytime I came home to New York City, on my way back to Baltimore to school, taking a bus, the bus ride is long, so I felt like, I got my music with me, but why don't I just pick an album that I'm hesitant to buy, but for the sake of the bus trip and reviews I've seen, I'll pick it up. So I chose to pick up the Slim Shady LP because I kind of already liked that one song, and the album had got some decent reviews. So I picked it up, listened to it, and I became an Eminem fan that day. Why? Mainly because he was different. He wasn't a white boy rapper trying to sound or act black. He sound like what, and this is probably a stereotype, but he sounds like what a white boy would sound like rapping. He rapped about things like mushrooms and stuff like that, at a time where dudes really were talking about smoking weed and stuff like that. So I like that part of him because he was authentic. I thought his rhymes were funny, you know what I'm saying? I thought he was kind of clever with his lyricism. And there were a couple of moments in songs he appeared on where I was like, yo, this dude could actually spit. The wordplay was really the attraction. So since that album, I was checking for him. And then when he dropped the Marshall Mathers LP, which is arguably my best album. Well, it is my favorite album, but I think the one that followed that is probably his best album. But the Marshall Mathers LP came out, and it just kind of reinforced my fandom with Eminem. And then when he dropped the Eminem Show, his third album, which is arguably his best album, I was sold as a fan. I was like, yo, this dude is nice. I'm not so much a fan of the goofy records that they put out, but hey, there's a certain sector of fans that enjoyed that. And in later years, I felt like the album that followed the Eminem Show was trash. Never bought it. And then it was like hit or miss from there. So, probably the albums that I've liked since the Eminem Show are like Recovery and Relapse. Like, I like those enough to buy them. The others were okay. Revival was trash to me. I'm sorry, M, but it just was. Marshall Mathers LP 2 should have been doper than what it was. So it in recent years as an Eminem fan, it was crazy, right? Because, it's a lot of duds in there, and this is a couple of bright spots like Rap God and stuff like that. Now, there was a point also within Eminem, and I know there's a lot of backstory, but I got to give it to y'all so y'all can understand my perspective when we start breaking down Eminem as an MC, because that's what this whole thing is about. But when I would listen to, basically sometime in the early 2000s, right, that tape surfaced. I think Benzino was part of making that tape surface or whatever, but surfaced of Eminem, a young Eminem as a teenager, who was basically angry at a black chick. I guess he used to mess with her, and she broke up with him or whatever. So he rapped about it, right? Hold up, do say. And if you know Eminem and how he treats his baby mama in his lyrics, you can imagine that he wasn't very happy, right? So this was a record where he basically called her the N-word. And this is a family podcast, so that's why I'm not saying it. But nevertheless, he called her the N-word, right? Which is nigger. It's my podcast. I can say what I want. But that was a point where I was like, I can't mess with this dude, because to me that felt like, at that time, that felt like, yo, this is the type of dude who's all up in our culture, you know what I'm saying, benefiting from it. And, just basically probably suppressing a side of him that's always been there. You know what I'm saying? That's what I started to think about. That's something that's probably always been there, right? So there was a moment where I was like, I'm not messing with that dude. I would look at the albums that I loved, like, you know, like there was kryptonite, like I couldn't even touch him. But then I found myself kind of being a hypocrite, because at the same time I was taking his stance on Eminem for something that he recorded. I'm not excusing him saying the N-word, but he was 17. And anybody who's not 17 and older than 17, you know there are a lot of things we've done, I know I have done and said, that you would never do at this point in your life as an adult, because it's wrong. And there was that part, and I was still struggling with it. But then I found myself being a hypocrite, because at the same exact time, I had literally watched R. Kelly piss on a minor, and I still listened to his music. I still bought those albums. I mean, the albums was hot. Like that episode of the Boondocks where he's getting away with all this and he just throw the music on and people forget what he did. So I started thinking about that, and I'm like, man, I'm being a complete hypocrite, because here's a grown-ass man who knows what he's doing. Obviously, there's something wrong with him in R. Kelly. And then here's a dude who I'm penalizing for something he did when he was 17 years old. So that's how I became an Eminem fan again. I forgave him. I believed his apology was genuine. And I've always believed this, because it's never really wavered, that this was a dude that represented the culture, right? So boom, there it is. There's my backstory on me as an Eminem fan. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty. Eminem, the MC. There are two sides of the argument when it comes to the Eminem effect, I'd like to say, right? There's the one side that's predominantly black, predominantly male. I don't know how much the ladies feel, but I really get the opinions of the males who don't like Eminem, somewhat acknowledge his skills, somewhat, aren't really too committed to it for some legitimate reasons. One being they can't get with his content. I could absolutely understand that, because he's goofy in some cases, and some people don't, when they listen to hip hop, they want to hear rappers say certain things. You know what I'm saying? They want to hear him rhyme a certain way, and Eminem is too different for that. I get that. But then there's the other side of them that also feels, and in some cases, some cats don't want to fully commit to it. Salute to those who have and didn't take social media to put the battery in their back. But some feel that if he was a black dude, he would just be regular. He wouldn't be selling as much records. Hip hop fans wouldn't say he is as good as he is. They think that the hype on Eminem is the fact that he's white. So it heightens what we think about his lyrics. Now, that's one side of the spectrum. The other side, and we leaving out the groupies, the stands, if you will, because their opinions don't matter. We're talking about people that both sides have legitimate arguments, basically, or respectable arguments. Let me not say legitimate, respectable arguments on both sides. So the other side is the person who hears the wordplay, who hears the technique, who hears the lyricism before they hear the content. That tends to come from also probably predominantly black MCs and fans, because there are a lot of MCs who, the dudes who feel the other way about Eminem, who they like their favorite rappers, love Eminem. And that's what kind of baffles my mind, because it's like, well, dag, if your favorite MC acknowledges the skill, why is it so difficult for you to? But nevertheless, there are a number of rappers who acknowledge Eminem is a monster on the mic. I think above all, you cannot deny that, not because you have to relate to the content, but it's about the lyrical skill that it takes to write, craft, and perform some of the things, not everything, some of the songs and the verses Eminem put out. Now, here's a little bit more backstory. Eminem, like I said before, is a dude who is openly respected old school hip hop, battle rap, true hip hop, everything, right? He signed 50 Cent. He signed Westside Gunn and Conway. He has D12. He signed 50 Cent when nobody else wanted to touch him. This is a dude who really it's not, oh, I can capitalize off him. Nobody wanted to touch 50 Cent after he got shot. Eminem gave him some of that shine. 50 got hot on the streets, but Eminem and Dr. Dre gave him some of that shine, right? But nevertheless, same thing with Slaughterhouse. You know what I'm saying? Like Royce, like even Joe Budden, like it didn't work out so well for Joel Ortiz and them, but it's a little shine. It gives you things, you know what I'm saying? Which is great. But Eminem has also worn a series of his favorite old school albums on t-shirts as he does interviews, as he performs, as a way of promoting hip hop, real hip hop. So we talking about Paris shirts, Onyx, Naughty by Nature. I think I saw an Outkast joint before. I think I saw an Illmatic before. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, because the polarizing thing, the Eminem effect that could affect both sides or can poison both sides of those arguments is the fact that Eminem sells probably the most records ever of any rapper or group. And that's what makes that one side very angry. That's what makes that one side say, if he was just a black dude, he'd be a regular dude. But my question is that his fault? Everything is consumer based, right? I'm going to put it like this. I don't watch BET, right? Do say. I don't watch BET not because I'm boycotting it, but because, it took years, but there was nothing for me to watch on it. Nothing that interests me. You know what I'm saying? Not just because it's black entertainment television, I'm not automatically drawn to it. It has to work with my taste as far as what I want to see, right? But something so minor like that, like with BET, is driven by others, consumers, other eyeballs. I may not watch because I don't like, just like you may not buy an Eminem album because you don't really like him. That is your prerogative. But the thing is there are people who are fans like myself that would check for him and buy his stuff and rave and whatever. But then there's those other people who I didn't really want to bring up, but they're a big part of it. Those other people are, and they're not all white people, but there are people who literally like him because he's white. Regardless of how much hip hop nostalgia and homage he'll try to evoke in everything he does and the people he signs, that's what they see first. I can relate to him. Now, I can understand you relating to somebody who looks like you. But that's what happened with a couple of groups and artists over the years. It's a legacy kind of that, where someone is basically doing something that came out of a African American community, and the proprietors of it are broke or dead or died of a drug overdose or whatever the case, and this person is anointed as the king and makes a lot of money and basically is viewed as a culture vulture. Eminem even talked about being the Elvis of rap. But there's a difference between Elvis and Eminem. See, Elvis was also influenced by a number of black musicians, but he didn't give back. You know what I'm saying? He didn't. He didn't acknowledge them. He took what he liked and he infused it into what he did. And to the consumers and the audience, he's looked at as the original, the king. That's a culture vulture. But Eminem, like I mentioned earlier, has probably done everything he can do to be the complete opposite of that. You ever seen Eminem in a setting that's basically for the pop and Caucasian audience? He is incredibly, I don't know what he is like today, but he's incredibly disruptive because he knows what they're doing. He knows that they're glued to him because he's white. And he hates that. And I'm guessing, I don't know Eminem. But I know people, right? And I don't think he likes it because he just wants to be respected for being a dope rapper. He don't want to be respected for being the dope white rapper. He don't want that from blacks. He don't want that from whites, especially whites, because he understands. This is why, you listen to Revival, none of those records can compare to the record he made called White America. If you want to hear conscious, almost NWA Public Enemy Eminem, and you want to end the argument about him being a culture vulture, that's just one of the records you can go to. It's a dope record. It's a powerful statement. But unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears on both sides. Because all people can see is you shining. They don't care about anything else. Because when they turn around and look, they see EPMD, Rakim, BDP, everybody on the same billboard, and Eminem is able to sell out stadiums. But is that Eminem's fault? That's just a reflection of the country we live in, right? That's what it should be. If he quit tomorrow, will it matter? No. So he can't be responsible for the opinions, the taste, the racism that others reflect. You just can't. You know what I'm saying? It's like being on your job and you you didn't do anything wrong, so you're not going to take credit for it because you worked there, right? You're going to be like, yo, that's what happened in accounting, right? But getting back on target, the consumer controls Eminem's sales. So it doesn't matter how many head nodding, straight up under the underground dudes don't like him. Somebody does. And it's not all coming from that audience, because it also comes from a lot of well-known, respected rappers. But what is it about Eminem in particular versus other rappers? It is the success that makes him so polarizing. That's the Eminem effect. Success. What also makes it that is that a lot of people truly respect. It's easy to write him off if he was an Elvis. Not that good, emulating the music, kind of culture vulturing a little bit, Justin Timberlake. It's easier to write Justin Timberlake's not bad, but it's easier to write somebody off if they tick a couple of negative boxes for you. But in Eminem's case, as far as hip hop goes, he's ticking all the right boxes. But dudes still don't like him. So here we now have a situation where, and Eminem has had battles and diss people all the time or whatever. A situation where another white rapper disses Eminem and it's pretty good. That white rapper being Machine Gun Kelly, MGK, responding to Eminem mentioning him on Eminem's most recent album, Kamikaze, which is dope, which I bought because I liked it. The response from Machine Gun Kelly was dope. I liked it. I liked the vibe. I liked the video. I like what he was saying. Why? Because I'm a hip hop fan. I'm not I'm just an Eminem fan. I'm a fan of it all for the most part. If it's good, if I like it enough. So I may not buy every MGK album. Actually, I don't own any. I own a single or two. But just because he's dissing someone whose music I've been listening to for years don't mean I need to just fall on M's side. That diss was hot to me. I liked it. But as of this podcast, Eminem responded with a record called Kill Shot. And I have to say, I have to be honest, because this is no different from me defending his lyricism or why I like him. But I didn't like Eminem's response that much. It's kind of weak. It's kind of underwhelming. The bars weren't bad. There were definitely some jewels in there as far as, him taking shots. But it's not what I expected. Why? Because Eminem is a lyrical monster. So beat-wise, flow-wise, I expected something a little bit more vicious. Now, both artists could be just playing chess. Do say break. Because Machine Gun Kelly's diss, which was called Rap Devil, which is a play off of Eminem's record Rap God. But I felt like that was Machine Gun Kelly just coming out with something that was smooth and dope, but maybe he got something more lyrical because, hey, I'm dissing Eminem. I got to be able to have a real comeback because who knows what he's going to come up with. I can say that for this Eminem diss. Not because I'm making an excuse for him, but because he's done it before. See, I've done my history, especially as a fan. When he had this whack battle with Benzino, he released a diss record. I forget the name of it. It wasn't that great to me. I think it was just a freestyle at the time. But it was against Benzino, so whatever. But then he released a record called Nail in a Coffin. And I was like, my God. Remember when Jay-Z said, I'll kill you ants with a sledgehammer? That's exactly what he did right there. It was literally nail in a coffin, right? So I kind of feel like Eminem's also baiting. I think again, you got to give Drake props for this much. But I think the back-to-back thing of releasing, that little jab record first to kind of get the person to come out their shell. It's like boxing, Play a little possum, get them to come out their shell, and then you unload. But I must say, as a whole, I'm not excited about this battle. I think I was when I heard MGK's diss. I think when Mac Miller passed away, it kind of destroyed the momentum of this battle. It took it out of the conversation. It became about this tragedy of Mac Miller passing away. And it felt like that had to pass. Eminem had to do an interview as a primer and then release it. So I'm not too excited for this battle. But I know that one side is saying to themselves, see, I told you he wasn't that crazy. I told you if he was black, he would not sell as much. He would be a regular dude. No, he'll just be a dude that's not as rich, but still nice. There are plenty of those. You know what I'm saying? Don't get mad at the record sales. I just explained to you why. But I guess the number one thing I want to say about Eminem and his legacy in hip hop and his DNA. For a little bit of time, there was a time where I was like, Eminem says he likes these artists a lot when he was younger. Who do I hear in his flow? And it took me a minute, because when he said he really liked Tretch, I was like, there's a little bit of Tretch in there, but not recognizable. And he said other artists he liked, and I was like, but I don't really hear them in there. But it wasn't until Eminem said, and I kind of was thinking this already, but once he said it, it kind of put the stamp on it. When Eminem said that he was heavily influenced by Pharoah Monch, I said, that's it. If Eminem was black, he'd be Pharoah Monch. If you don't know who that is, look it up. Listen to the way he rhymes. Listen to the inflections in his voice. Eminem is heavily influenced by Pharoah Monch. But he admitted that. He volunteered that information. That's a good look. That's giving back. Because now, those who are truly interested, but only really rock with Eminem, are like, well, who the hell is Pharoah Monch? Let me go hear this guy's music. And then Pharoah Monch moves a couple units, gets a couple more people at the shows. This is the guy who heavily influenced Eminem? If I think he the rap god, man, who is this cat? So I always thought that was dope. But as far as place in hip hop, I think lyrically he's one of the best of all time. As far as lyrical skill and technique, definitely within my top 10. As far as lyrical skill and technique, not albums, or because there's just too many classic hip hop albums, and I don't feel like I can call maybe one or two Eminem albums a classic, but it's an acquired taste. And I just happen to have acquired that taste. But one of the things that also literally lets you know that not only is this dude good as a battle rapper or wordplay, is the fact that, and I say this all the time, if you have a song or a hook that's so popular, or a song title, no, let's say a song, because then that kind of relates, whatever. It's so popular that it becomes a part of hip hop slang. You can't really be denied. Dudes will bash Eminem using a word that he came up with. Arguably his greatest song of all time, which is Stan, even though I think Lose Yourself that should just be a rapper's anthem. When you listen to those lyrics, like that's all day for MCs, basically. But as far as he's speaking to MCs, that's what I'm saying. But the song Stan, about a fan that wrote him letters, a crazed fan who wrote letters, is a slang that's used all the time. So much so that dudes who don't even like Eminem use it and don't even know that it came from Eminem. How about that? Now, that doesn't mean they need to automatically like him now because of that, but that says a lot. I mean, if your record is trash, it's not going to become a slang word. That means that song had a certain impact on listeners and hip hop fans, that they started to use that in their vernacular. So anytime you hear anybody say, Jay-Z stands, or Beyonce stands, or LeBron James stands, that's Eminem. And that's hip hop. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Vegas World INC. Also, check out the other podcast called That Time in Hip Hop for a little nostalgia, a little walk down memory lane. Maybe we will do one on a song stand and really dig deep. You can watch the video on YouTube. Just search for That Time in Hip Hop. Or if you subscribe to this very podcast, it's already a part of your feed. Just be careful because it's not always safe for work. I'm just saying, not all the time, especially this last episode. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a stan. I'm a fan. I did that on purpose. Peace. Drop it on the random.